If you walk through London on a cold evening, there is a smell you can recognize almost instantly. It is warm, salty, rich, and comforting. The smell of hot oil, crisp batter, and fresh chips wrapped in paper. Fish and chips may look simple, but behind this humble meal is a story shaped by migration, industry, poverty, war, and national identity. This is not just fried fish and potatoes. This is the story of how one of Britain's most iconic dishes came to define a nation. To understand fish and chips, we have to begin with two separate ingredients that came from two very different journeys. The fried fish is often linked to Jewish immigrants from Spain and Portugal. Centuries ago, Sephardic Jews brought with them a tradition of coating and frying fish in oil. This method was practical as well as delicious. The fish could be cooked before the Sabbath and eaten later without losing all of its appeal. When Jewish communities settled in Britain, especially in London, this style of fried fish became part of urban food culture. It was flavorful, filling, and easy to sell on busy streets. The chips had a different path. Potatoes had already become a major food source in Europe, especially for working people. Sliced and fried potatoes were cheap, satisfying, and perfect for feeding hungry laborers. By the 19th century, Britain had both fried fish and fried potatoes. Sooner or later, someone was going to put them together. That combination began to take shape during the Industrial Revolution. Britain's cities were expanding rapidly. London was growing, factories were booming, and workers needed food that was affordable, hot, and fast. Fish and chips answered that need perfectly. New railways brought fresh fish inland from coastal towns, while industrial farming made potatoes more available than ever. Coal-fired ovens and frying ranges helped shop owners cook in large quantities. In a rapidly changing country, fish and chips became the perfect food for the new working class. No one can say with complete certainty who opened the very first fish and chip shop. Some claim it happened in London. Others point to the north of England. But by the second half of the 19th century, fish and chip shops were spreading quickly across Britain. They were cheap enough for factory workers, dock laborers, seamstresses, and poor families, yet comforting enough to feel like a treat. And London played a major role in that rise. In the capital, street food culture was already thriving. Crowded streets, long workdays, and growing populations created the ideal environment for takeaway meals. Fish and chips fit perfectly into that world. Vendors sold it hot, often wrapped in newspaper, making it both practical and memorable. The crackle of batter, the steam escaping from the paper, the sharp smell of vinegar in the air, these became part of the sensory life of the city. But fish and chips were more than convenient. They became deeply emotional. For many poor families, this was one of the few meals that felt special, without being out of reach. It was cheap enough to buy, but delicious enough to look forward to. In a society sharply divided by class, fish and chips became one of the rare foods shared across social lines. By the early 20th century, fish and chips were no longer just popular. They were part of British identity. That identity was tested during the two world wars. Food shortages and rationing changed the way Britain ate, but fish and chips held a remarkable place in public life. During World War II especially, the British government understood how important this meal was to morale. While many foods were rationed, fish and chips were famously kept outside the main rationing system for much of the war. Leaders knew that taking away this beloved meal would damage public spirits. In bombed cities, in blacked-out streets, and during nights of fear and uncertainty, a portion of fish and chips remained one of the few familiar comforts people could still hold on to. That says a lot about the dish. It was not luxurious, it was not elegant, but it mattered. After the war, fish and chips remained a symbol of ordinary British life. In seaside towns, it became part of holiday culture. In cities like London, it stayed connected to working neighborhoods, corner shops, and Friday night traditions. Classic details became almost ritualistic, cod or haddock, thick-cut chips, salt, vinegar, maybe mushy peas on the side. And yet, like Britain itself, the dish kept evolving. Immigration, global trade, and changing tastes influenced how it was served. Some places made it gourmet, others stayed loyal to tradition. But the heart of the meal remained the same, something hot, filling, and comforting, shared between the street and the home, between the worker and the wanderer, between history and everyday life. So the next time you see fish and chips in London, do not just think of it as takeaway food. In one paper-wrapped portion, you are tasting migration, survival, industry, and memory. Fish and chips is not just Britain's most famous meal, it is Britain's story served hot.